How do we close our positions or sell all our shares on eToro? To do this, let's do a test. We're going to close this Tesla position. But first, let me present a situation that you probably have questions about. And that is, what happens if I invest on top of what I've already invested? Right now, the stock market is closed, but what we can do is look for Tesla shares. But in the after hours market, as you can see here, which is this one, let's consider investing, for example, in 10 shares. Let's actually buy 10 shares right here, and then we will proceed to click on invest again, but this time we are only going to purchase 5 shares. Remember, I'm not making real purchases. I'm using the virtual portfolio, which I most recommend to people just now creating their account, because this way you won't risk your own money. You can experiment with the $100,000 virtual portfolio instead. Also remember, in the description I've left a link, so if you have questions, you can go there to register and discover this for yourselves. Alright, let's go over to the portfolio. Do you remember that we bought 10 shares and then 5 more? Well, we'll get to that in a moment, but first let's show what most of you are interested in, how to close out your shares. To do that, you come here where it says portfolio, go to the specific stock you want to sell, and click where it says close. If it doesn't show up here, click on the 3 dots and then click on close again, and it will appear here. Then click on close all, because that way you'll close out the entire position. Now, let's move on to the next explanation, which is actually the most interesting one, and it's about what do I do if, for example, I bought 5 shares in January, then another 10 in February, then another 2 in March, and so on? Well, look, do you remember that we just bought these shares here a moment ago, but first we bought 10 and then we bought 5. So when I click on close and want to exit all my positions, notice that I only get this option to close all. What is going to happen? I'm going to have to close my entire position, everything I've previously invested, all at once. That is, I can't say, oh, I want to sell this first and then that, unless we click here where it says or select specific positions. So let's click there, and what will happen is that it will take us directly to a breakdown of all the shares we've bought. So how can we tell? First, I made this purchase of 10 Tesla shares and then 5 more Tesla shares. Don't worry about it saying CFD. What's happening is that we're, well, in after hours trading, but that's fine. A CFD in practice can be just like actual shares. So now what happens here? Now, if I want, I can close out. Let's imagine you bought these 5 shares in January. It's now March, and you only want to close out these 5 shares. Well, in that case, you need to come over here and click where it says close. Now, a completely different section will appear, and it shows the current value, 243.57, the value at which we opened this position, that is the value of this share, and then the loss we would have incurred, in this case, 6.44. Here we can completely close the posita, that is the purchase we made in the example we gave in January. But now there's something else. Within this, we can also close part of the position. In other words, maybe we don't want to sell all the shares we bought at 250 because maybe the share is now at 350, just as an example. And what happens is that we want to keep part of this position. So what we can do is close by amount. As we know, this time we have 242.47. So for example, we can just withdraw $100 from the current value of these shares if that's what we actually want. If not, what we can do is set it directly by a number of shares. So here, what we're going to do is go by the total number of shares we initially invested in. For example, if we had originally invested in 5 shares, which is what we had, well, in this particular case, we actually have fewer shares available. Then what we can do is strategically withdraw, for example, 4 shares or perhaps just 2. So I'm basically removing about half of my current position, but I am definitely keeping the remaining portion. And I can also set it exactly at 2.5, meaning half a share. It doesn't necessarily have to be a whole share, because remember that eToro allows you to invest in fractional shares. So in this particular case, we would be selling exactly 2.5 shares, which consequently means we would be generating a total of 122.03. Actually not generating, but losing a certain amount of money. But then what we can effectively do here is use this kind of strategy to exit some positions and not lose as much, or perhaps exit when we're making a profit, but with the certainty that the stock will keep going up in the future. So we definitely don't want to completely miss out on the gains we could have in the future. In this case, we can do it this way. We're going to click on close trade, and this stock is automatically sold, as we can see here. But we also have another option, which is when we already have shares from a specific date or a specific purchase, and we're going to close out the second one that appears here. And perhaps we do not wish to close half of our position or anything similar to that, but instead simply desire to withdraw our money. So we will proceed to click on close trade, and it will automatically be sold. Now, remember that we sold this one halfway. That's why we still have a portion left, look, in the units of 2.50. That's why we have this remaining here. So in that sense, we would have this. And if we go back to our portfolio here, we're left with a smaller portion, obviously, because we withdrew part of that money. Once you have successfully closed your trades, the available cash balance will automatically appear in the updated balance shown clearly here at the bottom, meaning the money you have already effectively withdrawn. In fact, let's close this last one. Look at these $122 that appear here. Let's close it and see how from $77,019. We're now going to close at $77,141.70 in just a moment. Here, in this particular case, as soon as we have successfully sold these, we can then proceed to the withdrawal button and conveniently withdraw our money from eToro directly if that's precisely what we want. Or if not, we can simply go back to Discover and find other suitable investment options. And this is how we can effectively sell or close our positions on eToro.